We're now approaching the 67th anniversary of our independence, and 67 years is a long time in the life of man. Indeed, if you think about it, it's the average Indian life expectancy today. Since life expectancy was shorter at the time of independence, it's safe to say that most Indians born just after independence have now passed on. So it's useful to take stock at a time like this. Did we achieve the dreams of our founding fathers for freedom's first children? Or have we fallen woefully short? What more do we need to do to make that dream a reality? Now, if we think about what our founding fathers wanted, they certainly wanted political freedom for the people of India. Freedom to determine who we would be governed by, as well as freedom of thought, expression, belief, faith, and worship. You will recall, you will see the words of the preamble to the Constitution there. They wanted justice and equality of status and of opportunity. And they wanted us to be free from poverty. Now, we've made substantial progress in achieving political freedom. Our democracy has matured, with people confidently choosing to vote out governments that lose touch with their needs. Our institutions protecting the freedom to vote have grown stronger, with the Election Commission and the forces of law and order ensuring free and largely fair elections throughout the country. Political parties, NGOs, the press, and individuals exert checks and balances on public policy. And the judiciary has taken important steps to protect individual freedom. That's on the political side. On the economic side, our economy is far richer than it was at the time of independence, and poverty has come down substantially no matter what poverty line you look at. Of course, some countries like South Korea that were in a similar situation as we were then are far better off today, but let us remember that many others have done far worse. Indeed, one of the advantages of a vibrant democracy that has accompanied our growth is that it gives people an eject button which prevents governance from getting too bad. Democracy has probably ensured more stable and equitable economic growth than an authoritarian regime might have. Yet if we step back and take a dispassionate view of both our democracy and our economy, it would suggest some concerns. Even as our democracy and our economy have become more vibrant, an important issue in the recent elections was whether we had substituted the crony socialism of the past with the crony capitalism of the present, where the rich and influential are alleged to have received land, natural resources, and spectrum in return for payoffs to venal politicians. Now, clearly, crony capitalism is harmful to free enterprise because it kills transparency and competition. And therefore, it's also harmful to opportunity and economic growth, something our founding fathers cared very much about. Also, by substituting special interests for the public interest, it is harmful to democratic expression. If there's some truth to these perceptions of crony capitalism, a natural question has to be why people tolerate it. Why do they vote for the venal politician who perpetuates it? Because I said we do have democratic freedom of expression and of the vote. So here's a hypothesis, and it draws on some work done by Richard Hofstadter, a famous American political scientist, when he was looking at the United States around the turn of the 19th century. So one widely held hypothesis of why we have crony capitalism or corruption in public life is that our country suffers from the want of a few good men in politics. Now, I believe this view is unfair to the many upstanding people in politics. But even assuming that it is true, every so often we see an experiment where we have the emergence of a group, usually upper middle class professionals, who want to clean up politics. But when these quote-unquote good people stand for election, they tend to lose their deposits. Does the electorate really not want squeaky clean government? Now, apart from the conceit that high morals lie only with the upper middle class, the error in this hypothesis, I believe, may be in believing that the problems stem from individual ethics rather than the system we have. In a speech I have made before the Bombay Chamber of Commerce in 2008, I argued that the tolerance for the venal politician is simply because he's the crutch that helps the poor and underprivileged navigate a system that gives them so little access. This may suggest why he survives. Let me explain. Our provision of public goods is unfortunately biased against access by the poor. In a number of states, ration shops do not supply what is due, even if one has a ration card. And too many amongst the poor do not have a ration card or a BPL card. Teachers do not show up at schools to teach. The police do not register crimes or encroachments, especially if committed by the rich and powerful. Public hospitals are not adequately staffed, and ostensibly free medicines are not available at the dispensary. Loans are not freely available to those who need it. I can go on, but you know the all too familiar picture. Now this is where the crooked but savvy politician fits in. While the poor do not have the money to quote-unquote purchase public services that are their right, they have a vote that the politician wants. The politician does a little more to make life a little more tolerable for his poor constituents. A government job here, an FIR registered there, a land right honored somewhere else. And for this, he gets the gratitude of his voters, and more important, their vote. Of course, there are many politicians who are honest and genuinely want to improve the lot of their voters. But perhaps the system tolerates corruption because the street-smart politician is better at making the wheels of the bureaucracy creak, however slowly, in favor of his constituents. And such a system is self-sustaining. An idealist who's unwilling to work the system can promise to reform it, but the voters know there's little one person can do. Moreover, who will provide the patronage while the idealist is fighting the system? So why not stay with a fixer you know, even if it means the reformist loses his deposit? This sort of completes the circle in the theory. The poor and the underprivileged need the politician to help them get jobs and public services. The crooked politician needs the businessman to provide the funds that allow him to supply patronage to the poor and to fight elections. The corrupt businessman needs the crooked politician to get the public resources and contracts cheaply. And the politician needs the votes of the poor and the underprivileged. Every constituency is tied to every other constituency in a cycle of dependence, which ensures that the status quo prevails. Now, well-meaning political leaders and governments have tried and are still trying to break this vicious circle. How do we get more politicians to move from quote-unquote fixing the system to reforming the system? The obvious answer is to either improve the quality of public services or reduce the public's dependence on them. In my view, both approaches are necessary. So then, how does one improve the quality of public services? The typical answer has been to increase the resources devoted to the service and to change how it is managed. A number of worthwhile efforts are underway to improve the quality of public education and healthcare. But if resources leak or public servants are not motivated, which is likely in the worst governed states, these interventions are not very effective. Some have argued that making a public service a right can change delivery. It's hard to imagine, however, that simply legislating rights and creating a public expectation of delivery will in fact ensure delivery. After all, is there not an expectation that a ration card holder will get decent grain from the fair price shop? Yet all too frequently grain is not available or is of poor quality. Now, information decentralization can help. Knowing how many medicines the local public dispensary received or how much money the local school is getting for midday meals can help the public monitor delivery and alert higher-ups when the benefits are not delivered. So information helps, transparency helps. But the public delivery system is usually most apathetic where the public is poorly educated, of low social status, and disorganized, So monitoring by the poor is also unlikely to be effective in those cases. Some argue this is why the middle class should enjoy public benefits along with the poor, so that the former can protest against poor delivery, which will ensure high quality for all. In other words, the middle class parent will go fight the teacher who's not working, and the poor child in the classroom will also benefit. But making benefits universal is costly and may still lead to indifferent delivery for the poor. Also, the middle class may live in different areas from the poor. Indeed, even when they're located in the same area, the poor may not patronize the facilities frequented by the middle class because they feel out of place. And even when all patronize the same facility, providers may be able to discriminate between the voluble middle class and the uncomplaining poor. So if more resources and better management are not always a solution, what might work? The answer may partly lie in reducing the public's dependence on government-provided jobs or public services. A good job, for example, may give a household the money to get private healthcare, education, and supplies, and reduce their need for public services, a good private job. Income could increase an individual's status and increase the respect they are accorded by the teacher, the policeman, or the bureaucrat. But this just postpones the problem by one. How does a poor man get a good job if he has not benefited from a good education or good health care in the first place? In this modern world where good skills are critical to a good job, the unskilled have little recourse but to take a poorly paying job or to look for patronage that will get them a good job. So we're back to square one. We've arrived at a contradiction. The good delivery of public services is essential to escape the dependence on bad public services. So how do we break this contradiction?